Well, welcome to the Play Healing Podcast with me, your host, Debi John. And today I am so delighted to have Trevor on the podcast. We met in Oxford, didn't we, at the Master
Did.
Series, the Trauma Conference in September 2023. And ever since, we've been like messaging, having meetings, and just talking about life. You're doing something completely different to me in one sense, but you're also really passionate about living life to the full, maximizing the time we have on this planet Earth, building connection within ourselves and others. And I'm going to give you time to explain what you're all about. But as I do in this series, I'm going to start, if you don't mind, by going back to your childhood. And
Okay.
I would love to know what you played with as a child, how you played, what your memories were around play when you were
It's so
growing up.
interesting because I think that you asked this question, you threw up this question like earlier today, and I kept on thinking about it. And it's so interesting because I grew up in a place called Gibraltar,
Mm-hmm.
and if I look back to my childhood, my play area was nature. We used to go up the rock. We lived very near the upper rock area, so every occasion we could, we'd just go up there and play with apes, animals, insects. It was more of a holistic playground, right? Which is
Mm.
quite interesting. But that question did bring a lot of memories back to me on in terms of what I'm doing now and how I use sort of animal therapy and co-regulation as a tool. And now it makes me think, was I co-regulating? Was I self-regulating?
Mm-hmm.
Which is quite interesting, yeah.
Yeah. It's quite amazing that the environment, this world has the resource that we need if we find, if we know where to look. And some
Yeah.
of us have been very lucky to grow up in places that are very nurturing, they're warm, or they're not hostile environments, for example, because you've got this a warmer climate, you've got lots of vegetation, you've got animals living there, and you've got this beautiful sort of ecosystem around you. It sounds pretty idyllic. And you and I really believe in that sort of healing power of
Yeah,
nature, and
absolutely.
how important it is to connect there. And
Yeah.
now what are you doing now? Could you explain to listeners what you're kind of about,
So,
what you're
so
involved
I'm a
in?
polyvagal trauma-informed coach, EMDR therapist. I essentially live with my clients. So I've created a program where we're doing very intense work. Normally, I deal with people coming from a place of dissociation or
Mm-hmm.
just struggling with life. So I come in, set up certain routines, but we do a lot of trauma work, in-depth trauma work. I bring IFS into play, like I said, the EMDR. For those who don't understand what EMDR is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. Essentially, what we do is we open up the memory network, and through the use of bilateral stimulation, we allow certain memories to process faster. And at the same time, we install what we consider to be an adaptive memory, well, not a memory, but a resource
Mm-hmm.
on that area of the memory.
Kind of reprogramming the brain. You're
Well,
taking
sort of
something
reprogramming,
specific.
understanding. Yes, yeah, precisely. Not reprogramming, but essentially allowing your innate ability to process information to go faster.
Mm-hmm.
Remember,
Mm-hmm.
the trauma is the interruption of process.
Being stuck.
It's
Mm-hmm.
stuck. It's a sort of a corrupt file. So what we
Mm-hmm.
do is by bilateral stimulating and desensitizing it, we allow that process to happen faster.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that is one, so we could call it a modality, can't we? Because as therapists, we can use a whole range of different modalities. And I know you're someone that likes to work holistically. So why don't we just dive straight in and talk about how you find clients release from trauma? Let's call it healing, because I believe in the healing power of play. We can play around with all these different modalities and nature and body movement and things like that. What do you find works when you're dealing with someone who's highly stressed? So you come in to maybe a CEO, don't you, or someone who's got a lot of responsibility, and they are working and trying to keep in this optimum place of performance, and maybe they keep getting stuck? Or what are the kind of problems that your clients come up against before they work with you?
Obviously, burnout is one of them. Substance abuse is another. They're trying to
Hmm.
dissociate and trying to find pleasure. And it's
Hmm.
so interesting that how you lead this pause, play, and connect is very important. And now that I'm thinking about it, it's coming up for me. One of the questions I asked is, what is it you used to do as a child that brought you pleasure?
Hmm. Hmm.
And it's so interesting how when we do float backs in EMDR, they'll take me back to fishing or
Yeah.
to bike rides or
Hmm.
to being in nature. And we
Hmm.
really promote that. We encourage that. So what I do in my practice, I'm very lucky that I live with my client. I will actually go and fish with my client, or I should go for a bike ride. And I will allow them to feel the sensations.
Hmm.
And for the first time, there's a glimpse of happiness, true happiness. Not make
Hmm.
believe happiness where you're buying a new car or a new home, because these people are very wealthy. It's more about just the simple stuff that they used to do that they forgot about. And we're
Hmm.
just bringing it back to the body, bringing
So
that sensation.
reconnection.
Yeah, and it's incredible, right? When it comes to your pauses, I consider pause the moment that we hear our body, that we
Mm.
listen to our body. What's our body
Mm.
saying? We
Mindful.
pause in order to be able to listen to our body. Because if not, we're not going to be able to get that. And I always say the same thing, especially in trauma work. In order to commence trauma work, there needs to be safety, but you need to
Hmm.
befriend your body again. And how you're going to do that is by paying attention and noticing the sensations that are going on in your body.
That's so good. That's the question I ask is, where am I at? And then
Yeah,
where is my child at? So often I'm working with the parents, and that
yeah.
where am I at maybe is the
Mm,
same kind of questions as you're talking about, where is the tension? Where
mm.
am I how am I holding, where am I
Yeah.
holding the trauma or the stress?
Notice it, name it, and nurture it.
Yeah,
And
very
I
nice.
think,
Which
yeah,
how you would with a child. We talk about
precisely.
pace, or you're talking about the other modalities, how you connect and tune into the child. And first,
Mm,
we sometimes need to tune into ourselves.
yeah,
And this kind of pausing can be sometimes pausing to have therapy, because we keep getting stuck. We keep
yeah,
ramming up against the same, patterns of behavior or addictions, as you're saying, or um, thought patterns, and things like this EMDR you're talking about. And there's, quantum energy coaching they've trained in, and lots of other things. I mean, it's people need to find the therapist that works for them. And you're a fantastic character. I remember
thank you.
first meeting you, and we got on like a house on fire really
You do.
quickly, and we had lots of fun. And some people need somebody like that they can just feel at ease with and can just do life with, because
Yes,
ultimately that's what we were originally programmed for. We were supposed to be in community, weren't we? We're supposed to be in
precisely.
larger, close-knit communities. We don't have that so much
Mm,
anymore. And especially when you get to um, positions of leadership,
yeah.
that when you're a manager, you become a manager, and then it's like half of the
The
team
compassion,
stop
compassion leaves your
talking to
body.
you,
Precisely,
right?
the compassion leaves your body. One of the things that I am constantly challenging in the therapeutic practices in the world is the ability of touch. I hug all my clients. I
Mm,
will constantly be in touch in my client because I believe
mm,
it is a tool for them to feel safe. So I'll
mm,
see one of my clients, give them a hug, and years later, then I'll bump into them in London. The first thing they will do is give me a big hug and just hold,
mm,
because we know we can connect through that. Unfortunately, what I've noticed especially in psychotherapy, psychoanalysis, we've got this this golden standard of saying, okay, I can't just show my emotions. I'll share with my clients my own experiences because I do believe that my experience create the therapist I am. So why not share that? Why not
yeah,
use that as a tool? Why not use that vulnerability for them to regulate? And we say this in the Polyvagal, and I know that you spoke to Michael last week, right?
Michael, yeah. Mm,
Amazing, incredible guy. And we often say that before we self-regulate, we need to co-regulate.
yeah, yeah,
So as what you've just mentioned, as a CEO, success is very lonely. So who are they trying to co-regulate? Is
mm,
the same CEO going home to his wife being CEO? How
mm,
do you stop? How do you interrupt that pattern? And coming back to what you do, pause, play, and connect, it's crucial for a CEO to do those 3 steps
mm,
in
mm,
order for them to, again, find feeling in themselves and say, okay, so I'm really stressed. I'm going home to my wife. How can I interrupt? How can I pause? How can I play? How can I connect? And it could be with her. I
mm,
could be alone too,
mm,
right?
mm,
And in the Polyvagal, we call that the glimmers. What are the glimmers in your life that take you to your ventral state, take you to that place of connectedness, to
mm.
calm, collected, curiosity is a key for it's
Play.
yeah,
Curiosity is a massive pillar of play.
creativity.
Yeah.
So when you spend weeks without being creative,
Mm.
you need to pause,
Mm-hmm.
play, and connect.
Yeah. Yeah. That I mean, I'm reflecting on some of my closest friends,
Mm,
and I'm thinking about two friends. One works in one of the biggest corporates in the UK, and the other leads a large charity.
mm,
And they're both high performers, but one of them loves to ice skate and will take themselves and just go skate and just glide across the ice. And that connects with what she loved when she was a young teenager and child. And the other does trail running and just runs up mountains or just cycles to work instead of
yeah,
drives, or, you know, right in the center of London. But they have such pressured jobs. When they tell me about the things they have to do, I'm just like, wow, wow. But I know they play as well as,
yeah,
have to do all those things. And it's so, so vital. And it's fostering the relationship they have as a couple, the
yeah,
relationship they have with their child. It's pausing to make time for those things. Because when the wheels come off those kind of buses, it is a whole, world of, talk about healing, the healing journey. It's like, you and I know of case study after case study after case study of clients where their whole world has been shaken, whether
yeah.
that's a divorce, whether that's a bereavement, whether that's their children. I know some people whose children are addicted to drugs and things like that. They have everything they need materially, yet these addictions are coming up, and um or we have natural disaster, or we have conflict, the amounts of
We have a loss
conflict in this world, right?
we wake up with a loss of purpose,
Mm,
which is a massive one nowadays, and it's a silent killer.
right.
It's a silent killer. There's so many people I meet, and they say, "So, what's your week like?" "Oh, I've done this, and the other," and they give them this systematic sort of schedule. And I said, "Okay, so what's the purpose of that?" So this is what brings me to the next point, which is intentionality. We have so many people going into yoga retreats. What's the intention?
Mm,
Why do you go there? And I
mm,
and I think that there's pseudo healing constantly, reading thousands of books and constantly reading. Are you applying it with intentionality? I am going down to the beach, to nature, placing my feet on water so I can get some
yeah.
exposure to elements. Why? Because I know that regulates my nervous system. Once I'm there, I'm really just going to really pay attention to the shifts,
Mm,
intentionality. But we don't do
mm,
that. Oh no, I'm having a great week. I went down to the beach and I just stood by the beach for 20 minutes. Okay. What happened in that space? Oh, I was just there. What's the intentionality of what we're doing? It's crucial as well.
beautiful, beautiful.
But nature has the ability to connect.
Mm,
Why? As we know, sound is a big must in our life. We're constantly carried by sound, whether it's music in the car, whether it's your phone, whether it's your laptop, whether it's conversations on the train. And then when you find yourself in nature and all you can hear is the silence and the breeze of the trees, it allows to regulate your nervous system. For once, your nervous system is not fighting anything, it's not in the fight or flight, it's
mhm.
relaxing, it's accepting.
Yeah, it might be good to just touch on those things, because we say the word polyvagal, and sometimes there might be listeners who haven't listened to
Yeah,
other episodes or have not heard that before. And I think what we were saying before, I wanted to just touch on is it's a bit of psychoeducation, sort of learning
Yeah,
about these
love it.
things like polyvagal theory, but then it's application. It's how does it work for me in my life? And the fact
Mm,
that we can just throw off this feeling of everyone needs to do yoga, it works for everyone, or everybody should be going having a run every day. Pausing is going to be different for one person to the next,
precisely.
especially
Absolutely.
especially based on our upbringing. Like you say, you were in a warmer climate. There might be someone who grew up in Norway or somewhere else,
Mm,
and there's different things that help them
mm,
to regulate. And
mm,
it goes back right down to how
mm.
your mother
Yeah,
helped you to
absolutely.
regulate
Prenatal,
co-regulation, go
prenatal.
again. So
Yeah.
so let's just quickly go through some definitions. So co-regulation, let's just quickly explain that. So
So
feeling
co-regulation is the
regulated.
ability. So what we have is a nervous system, and that's your vagus nerve. It runs from your medulla down to your stomach, essentially, and it innervates every organ in your body. You have three stages. So you have the ventral, sympathetic, and your dorsal. Your
Yes.
sympathetic one is where we mostly live, which is your fight or flight. We're constantly doing stuff in order to regulate, and that's a constant fight that we have. Then you have your dorsal state. This is a place where a lot of people actually live. And this is your collapse state. This is
Yeah.
your
Shut
routine
down.
state, shutdown. You said, "How are you feeling?" And the person will say,
Mm,
I don't know. I'm not sure." Um,
what?
and unfortunately, that's when you've been working so hard in your sympathetic nervous system that you drop because you're tired and you're resting. You essentially are resting, but without energy. You're just
Mm.
there. Then you have your ventral state in that space. And that is when, again, you're connected, you're curious, you're
Creativity,
excited.
play, that
But
happens.
there is a blend. And there
Yeah.
is a blend between the ventral and the dorsal state. And
Mm,
that's when you are at your best. That's when you're excited, but you're calm.
mhm, mhm,
That is when you want to grow, but at the same time, you know that there's a particular transition and a pace. Um,
mm.
so when it comes to the polyvagal, I always say, and we call it the science of connection and safety. One of the things I've noticed, and I've been doing this for a while, is at the beginning when you become a therapist, you just want to go into modalities and fix and fix and fix. And
Mm,
what I noticed was, funny enough, that without safety,
mhm,
without the safety of the therapeutic relationship, there is no treatment.
mm, And going back to when you were talking about sharing your story a bit, do you know, for me as an anxious client, when I was going through a lot of therapy, one of the things that really unhinged me was the fact that my therapist never said anything about her life, anything about that she kept such a detached. I just felt so detached from her. I had nothing to kind of grasp onto to kind
Yeah.
of say, "Oh, I'm a little bit like you," or "Oh, you
Mm,
understand me," you know?
mm.
And so, so I am very much that. And I was also taught when I was doing my
Interesting. Eh?
play therapy training to have a neutral face. So
Yeah.
I was
No.
supposed to have this neutral face. I thought, this doesn't feel right. It doesn't give any
You're
feedback to that
interrupting the
child.
flow. You're interrupting the
Oh,
co-regulation, right? And
oh
I always say
no,
the
I
same
just
thing,
couldn't.
in order for us to be able to co-regulate
Mm,
as a therapist, you need to show up in your session
authentic.
regulated yourself.
Yeah, very
So
regulated. You're someone who comes in very anxious. You need to be able to regulate yourself and be
yeah.
calm. Absolutely.
So I'll give you an example. I've just walked into a new contract, and that's 3 months of hard work. So what did I do? I spent 4 days in Dubai doing yoga, meditation, regulating myself, preparing myself for what's coming. I
Good.
owe it to
Yes.
my client to show up in the particular way. And again, coming back
Yes.
to the same thing, if I'm not myself, how do I expect them to be themselves?
Yeah, it's Brené Brown, isn't it? You need courage to be
Precisely.
authentic and vulnerable.
There
And
we go.
vulnerability, being in that vulnerable state, is an open state and
Yeah.
a compassionate state. And
Yeah.
you're receiving that person is the best way for a relationship. I mean,
Mm.
you and I were talking about that one time, and we are talking about what's true intimacy and what makes a really healthy dynamic between two adults. And safety comes right front and center
And
to that
playfulness.
piece, right? And then the play can happen. You
Yeah.
pause, if you want to build this connection, you have to see that person. You have to be open and courageous to be like,
Mm.
I, this is me.
Mm.
This is my
Precisely. And as
authentic
a
self.
therapist, it's a tool.
Mm.
It is a tool, but we find that we believe. I've heard so many times the whole "this is us," and I believe in this. So the therapist-client relationship, so the therapist at the top and the client at the bottom, and I believe in
Really?
this, completely in this.
Oh yeah,
Because there will be
absolutely.
times that my client will bring up something and I'll be like, whoa, yeah, that happened to me too. I get it.
Mm. Mm.
Even when we talk about dissociation and sort of substance abuse, someone
Mm.
will come to me and say, well, Trev, this is what I've been doing for the last 8 months. I
Mm.
say, okay, tell me about your life. Talk about his life. And I said, of course you were doing this. It's all we know. Like, you were trying to run away. I get
Mm.
it.
Mm.
That allows the client to say, there's nothing wrong with me.
Mm.
Okay, now I need to work on this. There's
Mhm.
nothing wrong with me. I just need to grow from this. The
Mhm.
thing is, we're trying constantly to we're trying to fix the
Mm.
outcome,
Yeah.
what the actual symptom. Let's go to the root. What's
Mm.
happening in this space? I get what's happening here. Why are you running
Where's the
away?
pain?
What's a part of you? And then come back to IFS. What's the part of you that feels that needs to protect the core self by
Yeah.
drinking, by using drugs? So let's just talk to that part. Let's have a conversation. Let me see
Yeah.
how you feel. Why are you showing up for John, for
Mm.
example?
Yeah.
It's
So talking
important
about
to
the
us as,
family systems, just for
yeah,
listeners who don't know the
in
family systems.
internal family system,
Yeah.
IFS is very important. We are multiple minds. We have a
Mm.
self energy. So let's just say I'm talking to you as a client and you say, oh, I don't think I need therapy. I would say, okay, that's a protector. Because the core self or the self energy will be very compassionate and say, whoa, let me pay attention to this. Maybe I do. So if I'm hearing, no, I don't need therapy, I know there's a protector there. So I'll speak to that
Mhm.
protector. Why do you think you need to protect Debs?
Mm.
And
Mm.
that changes the dynamics. Well, because I
The
don't want to go,
questions.
whoa. And that's it goes straight into, well, because I really don't want to uncover everything I've gone through. I really don't want to tap into that. I really don't want to.
Mhm.
Okay. So there's stuff there that you don't want to be hurt by. Okay, let's talk
Mm.
about that. And
Mm.
we'll figure in.
Yeah. Talking about pain
Mm.
and feeling hurt, and the word triggered is thrown about a lot. Okay. Especially I hear my children saying it a lot. And we do talk about being triggered. And how would you describe being triggered and its purpose and how it can help us grow and heal?
It's a very, very good question. And my understanding of triggered through the nervous system is an unhealed wound is triggered. Something that's happened in the past is showing up now. But the most beautiful thing about this is that the same person that suffered that incident back in the day is the same person that's showing up now. So it could be a child of Debs was 4 years old, and there's something that reminds the body and your nervous system. Oh, I've been here
Mm.
before, but that's the same person that you used to be.
Mm.
So that triggered is a maladaptive memory for me, and that
Mm.
has not been resolved, that's not been processed.
Mhm.
And the other question was,
I think it's how you help your clients to sort of heal from these things, or how do you move forward if you're noticing you're being triggered by something? So, for example, in my work, it would normally be a certain behavior that a child does, or they say something to you, and bang, you just want to react in a really strong way, or you feel really hurt or really offended or shocked. I've got teenagers, so there are days when they will say something that's not their sort of thinking part of the brain that
yeah,
comes. Yeah,
yeah.
they're painful. You left me, or you don't care, or but
Yeah,
it will come out as I hate you, or I
yeah,
just want to move out now.
yeah,
I hate living with you. If something that they say this, I have to pause, because if I took it for face value, I would just be like, "What? But I love you, but I'm your mom, and what do you mean? Like, you
I get
can't,
it.
And so I could go into that, or I could pause and go, okay, there's something deeper going on here. There's some unmet need, perhaps, or there's something that I've said, or maybe shown in my face, or a tone of voice, or something that's happened to them via someone else that has made them feel that. And all feelings are valid, aren't
Fantastic.
they? So
Fantastic. But
I need to
what is it
accept
you're
that,
precise?
but then
But
how
what
do you
is it
move
you're
forward?
doing? What is it you're doing with that sort of behavior? You're having a lot of compassion.
Mm,
Once we get triggered, or sort of hyper aroused, or whatever you want to call it, what you find is there's an element of compassion to ourselves. Once
yeah.
we've been in, once our nervous system shows up, only thing we
Mm,
can do is watch,
mm-hmm.
because we are in control of it,
Notice.
really. Notice. And you're like, okay, I've just noticed this. I was having a conversation with someone today and something came up and I called it out. And the
Mm,
person said to me, wow, that's very vulnerable of you. There's a lot of vulnerability. And I said, no, I've just called it out. Not because I want to be vulnerable, it's because I want to name it. And I call it out. Automatically, I'll feel it because I'm very sick. I think I've lost that insecurity I used to have to hold it in. And I see the value of putting it out there.
mm,
So
yeah.
about coming back to the question, how do I help my clients? I really allow them to be okay with it,
Mm,
because it's extrapolated the moment you want to hold it in.
mm-hmm.
I hate you, mom. You're like, "Mm." But if you like, and it's like, okay, my nervous system is showing up. There's a lot of compassion. You divide yourself from
Mm-hmm.
yourself to your nervous system.
Mm. And
And
what
then
is
you
my
try
job
to,
at that point? What is my
yeah,
job? Is my
yeah.
job to feel it and express myself and tell them that that actually really hurt me? Or is
Mm,
my job to hold them and say, I see you first, you're hurting right now.
yeah.
You're feeling really strong emotions on and then moving forward from there. It's because I want to build connection with my kids. I want to keep that connection
Touch,
there. Yeah.
touch.
And we want to keep connection within ourselves. And we are walking around in society where there's such disconnect between our head and our heart, between our head and our bodily sensations. We can be so disconnected. I remember when I first started therapy, probably 10, 12, 13 years ago, my therapist said to me, she was a life coach, actually, she was amazing, the doctor of life. And she said, so how are you feeling? And I'd go, well, this happened and then this happened no, how are you feeling? And I would pause and go, uh, she had to give me a piece of paper with like 20 emotions on it listed out.
I love that.
And I would
I
take
love that.
about 5 minutes to
Yeah,
go down that list and go, I think I feel disappointed right now. And
yeah.
then I'd cry and then I'd
That's
realize,
it.
and I look back and think, flipping heck, the disconnect within myself. I'd pushed down, I'd soldiered on, I'd pushed down my emotions and soldiered on. I'd kept being strong, the strong one, holding everyone else, from stems back from really early on, being the oldest of 6 kids, all that kind of stuff. So going back to this disconnect, why don't we draw things to a close by just talking about what are your top tips for maybe building connection within yourself? How the sort of things that you've seen, the growth that you've seen your clients go on,
I think we go back to yoga, but with intentionality. I think nature is a key
walking in
principle. Touch,
mindfully. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, touch is important. But there's one that beats all of them, which is if we go into every conversation from a place of understanding that every behavior is a form of survival,
Mm,
there will be so much compassion in this world. Because
mm,
coming back to what you've just said about my daughter saying, I hate you. If if she's saying I hate you, their self-energy is not there. It's a protector. If we
mm,
have some sort of compassion in that space, all we can do is hold a space for them to express themselves. Because if we don't
massive.
allow that as parents, as individuals, as human beings, they will find a way to protect their own sides, and that could be through alcohol, drugs, porn. It could be anything.
Mm,
So one of the leading tips for me would be have a lot of compassion, because we really don't know what people are going through.
yeah.
We really don't.
No, we really, really don't, do we? So drawing things to a close, I've got a couple of questions. I've got one about the education system. I know
Mm.
you've got a daughter and you've seen her go through the education system and you've traveled a lot and you've seen a lot of schools and things. I'd love to know what you would change, you would want to change.
Safety.
And then I'd love to have your final take on pausing, playing, and connecting, and how you integrate this into your own life to stay at this optimum way of living, and maybe any final thoughts. So I'll let you take the stage. But education and then final thoughts.
Okay, so education, I think that's one of the one of the pillars of society should be safety and how we feel, how safe we feel.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that unfortunately the educational system nowadays is so driven by achievement and not by journey. And that's where safety starts being disrupted. Because we're trying to get to an outcome of getting a particular qualification, certain marks, where we don't really not allowing our children to absorb information because they don't feel safe. If you don't feel safe, you can't be curious, you can't be connected, you can't be calm to allow that information to process at its natural ability. We're constantly in a rush. I know that we have timelines in education, but there needs to be more done in order to just slow it down. Not have this, I need to study for this exam because I've got this, and if I don't do this, I won't get to A levels, and if I don't get to A levels, I won't go to university. I had my daughter speaking about university at the age of 12 and talking about exams. You're not allowing a child to be a child.
Yeah.
There's so much pressure already.
There is. There really is. How do you pause, play, and connect in your own life? How do you see it integrating into your own life? And if you had any final thoughts on things that we've been talking about today.
Yeah, so for me, my pause, play, and connect, I think, is funny enough reading. It's the way that I find peace within my books. I do travel a lot, so I think just being on a plane allows me to regulate a lot. Funny enough, that works for me. And final thoughts about this podcast has been how we should be more like us, I think, funny enough. How should we be more who we are, what's brought us to this place in the world, and how we can help. We will have clients that do not adapt to our sort of modalities, but that's okay. Because we all have a role in life.
Yeah, we all have a part to play, eh?
We all have a part to play. So I think love is a big one. Have a lot of love, compassion, and empathy. And one little point on empathy. We often think that empathy is, I feel the same way as you do. And I think empathy is more about your pain triggers an unhealed side of me. And that's why I feel the pain too.
Yeah, this healing journey doesn't stop, does it? It's an ongoing journey. And if you think you've arrived, I'd be a bit like, I'd be really? Are you sure? Where did you go for therapy? Yeah, so we're all a bit of a mess, aren't we? As
We are beautiful.
Chance Marshall, but that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah, we're humans,
as long as
right?
we're growing, eh? Green
Yeah,
for growth today. So
beautiful.
I really think it's been a beautiful conversation. I hope
Thank you
people
very much for having me.
from and good luck with your client at the moment. And I'll put some links on the podcast below about what you do, and let me know if there's any blogs you want me to link or anything like that. But thank you so much for your
Fantastic.
time. Have a good
Thank you
night.
very much.